You know, when you think about Japanese culture, what often comes to mind is this incredible sense of patience, right? That quiet stoicism in the face of some really tough situations. Well, there's a word for that, a really deep cultural concept called Gaman. And today, we're going to unpack what that word truly means. So, what is the secret to this legendary patience? Is it just something people are born with, or is it a learned skill? Well, the answer is tied up in this cultural idea that's way more complex and fascinating than any simple translation. Now, you might see Gaman translated as just endurance or perseverance, but honestly, that's barely scratching the surface. This is a term with a super surprising history and a really powerful social role that shapes pretty much everything in Japan, from how people interact to how businesses are run.
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to start by figuring out what Gaman actually is. Then we'll look at the absolute limits of human endurance. I mean, some of the stuff is wild. After that, we'll dig into the cultural why behind it all, check out the potential downsides, and finally, talk about finding that sweet spot. Let's get into it.
Okay, first things first. What exactly is Gaman? To really get it, we got to see how it's different from a similar idea, and then we dig into its origins, which, trust me, are not what you'd expect.
So to really understand Gaman, you have to know what it's not. See, in Japan, there's another word, nintai, which is all about personal perseverance. Think about an athlete pushing themselves to win a gold medal. That's nintai. Gaman is different. It's about enduring for the good of the group. It's not about you, it's about making things work for everyone.
But here's the real twist, the part that's kind of mind-blowing. Gaman actually comes from Buddhism, where it originally meant the complete opposite of what it means today. It meant self-pride, even arrogance. Isn't that wild? Over hundreds of years, the word did a total 180 to mean suppressing that very pride for the collective. So if Gaman is a type of endurance, it kind of makes you wonder, what are our limits? You know, how far can the human body and mind actually go? Well, some people have pushed those boundaries and the stories are just incredible. Let's talk about sleep, or not sleeping. Back in 1964, a 17-year-old kid named Randy Gardner stayed awake for 264.4 hours. That is just over 11 straight days. He did it for a science fair project. It's an almost unbelievable feat of sheer stamina. But that endurance came with a massive cost. The experiment showed just how fast performance tanks. After only 24 hours, his cognitive function was down 30%. After 2 days, his reaction speed was cut in half. It really proves a crucial point. Just because you can endure something doesn't mean it's a good idea. The fallout is fast and it is harsh.
And this kind of resilience isn't just about sleep. In the 60s, a man named Angus Barbier went on a medically supervised fast for 382 days, a year and 2 weeks without food. It's another one of those mind-boggling examples of what the human body is capable of when pushed to the absolute extreme.
Now, these extreme cases aren't just fascinating trivia, they've actually inspired real-world strategies. Huge companies looking at this research have built programs to boost both performance and well-being. Look at Google. Their Deep Work initiative led to a 3.4x jump in productivity. Microsoft saw a 78% improvement in employee mental health with their resilience program. This just shows you the power of managing endurance in a smart way. So we've seen what endurance can look like at its most extreme. But that brings us back to the central question. Why is Gaman, this particular kind of social endurance, so deeply valued in Japan? The answer is in how the self is viewed in a fundamentally different way. Yeah, this is the real heart of the matter. And to get it, we need to look at two different ways of thinking about who we are. One that's pretty common in the West, and another that's more common in places like Japan. So check out these two models of the self. On the left, you've got the independent self, common in many Western cultures. The self is its own solid, separate unit. But look at the right, the interdependent self. See how the line around the self is dotted? It overlaps with others. Here, who you are is literally defined by your relationships, your family, your friends, your team at work. And that right there explains everything. If your identity is tied up with your relationships, then keeping the group in harmony isn't just a nice thing to do, it's essential to your own sense of self. And that's why Gaman, putting your own ego aside for the group, becomes such a critical social skill. And hey, this isn't just some abstract theory. We've got data. There was this fascinating study that compared Canadian and Japanese participants. The Canadians got more motivated when they were told they succeeded at a task. But the Japanese participants, they were more motivated after being told they had failed. So what's the difference? Well, in an interdependent culture, failure isn't just about you. It's a signal that you need to try harder to not let the group down.
Okay, so Gaman can be a really powerful force for bringing people together and for pushing yourself to be better. But like with anything, too much of a good thing can be a bad thing. We have to look at the dark side. What happens when patience goes too far?
There's this common phrase in Japan, Jibun sae gaman sureba, which basically means, if only I endure, or if I just suck it up. It captures this whole mindset where one person takes on all the hardship just to keep the peace. It can seem really noble, but if it becomes a habit, it can be incredibly destructive over time.
And the results can be pretty serious. People might ignore early symptoms of a major illness because they don't want to be a burden. Or think about this. When your friends ask where you want to go for dinner, is your answer always, "Oh, I don't care, whatever you want"? That constant deference, that can be a sign you're actually losing touch with what you want.
And this really gets to the core of the danger. If you're constantly pushing down what you feel instead of letting it out, it's like a muscle you never ever use. Eventually, it can just atrophy. You can literally lose the ability to know what you're truly feeling. Okay, so we've seen the power of Gaman, and we've seen the peril. It's not inherently good or bad. The real secret, as with so many things in life, is just finding the right balance.
Let's not forget the upside we saw earlier, that strategic endurance can lead to a massive 3.4x performance boost. The point isn't to get rid of endurance, it's to balance it with rest and self-care. Endurance itself isn't the problem. It's the non-stop, unbalanced endurance that wears you down.
And that is the big takeaway here. Gemini, or any kind of endurance, is a powerful tool, but it has to be a conscious choice, not some automatic rule you follow that erases your own needs. The goal, really, in any culture, should be a healthy, sustainable harmony, not just silent burnout.
So, we'll leave you with a final thought. Think about your own life, your own culture. We all have pressures to endure, to put the team first. Where do you draw the line between what's healthy persistence and what becomes harmful self-suppression? It's a question we could probably all stand to ask ourselves a little more often.